The altcoin markets are booming. We are seeing massive gains across the board with ASTER, with Avantis, with Zero G, with Merlin Chain. And that brings us to a question of whether we are in the right altcoins and whether we should be hopping into those newer ones. And that's a key question that I'm asking myself, and I'm sure you're asking that as well. So in this video, we're going to dive into the question whether we have the right altcoins in our portfolio. Before we continue with this episode, I would like to ask you for a small favor, which is to subscribe to this YouTube channel, because more than 60% of you are not subscribed to this YouTube channel and are watching the content, which is great. But in order to keep improving the content and for us to expand the content and to provide even more knowledge, we need more subscribers. We need a bigger engagement. So if you are watching and if you're not subscribed, you can help us out by becoming a subscriber. And then we can start sharing more of what we do with the fund. We can start sharing more of what we do with the capital or what I do in a day-to-day life trading this portfolio. And that brings me to a question, which is, it's a very active period in the markets. And I have been trading ASTER in my day trading portfolio. I try to get into very volatile assets. And that day trading portfolio has gone from 1K to 12K in less than 3 months. Would you like me to be creating content on that portfolio? Let it know in the comments beneath. First of all, the markets are all of a sudden waking up in the sense that we've had some very positive listings, but we have also been seeing the first real all-time highs. And that's great, but those are new coins that probably nobody have heard about. And they have been starting to pop up and start to show amazing strength. But because of the fact that those charts are new, it might be super hard to judge whether or not it's an investment or not. And this all started by CZ openly tweeting about ASTER. We all know that CZ has been building Binance and that he has been doing great. He went to jail as well. But ultimately, we have been seeing a case where we have seen this big move upwards. And there is, if he is really building ASTER, it makes sense that there is still a lot of upside to be coming from here, especially seeing the fact that not only ASTER is showing strength, but also BNB has been printing new all-time highs. And those are very important factors that we need to take into account, which I'll come back to in a little bit. But with ASTER starting to get into the spotlight, we can see that CC is back. He's again working in this space, and that we're most likely going to get a case where more coins are following through. And I think that with CC backing ASTER, it is probably 99% sure that this is going to be a big success, especially given that the valuation of ASTER is still relatively low compared to the valuation of HYPE. And because that is the fact, that is creating a big mispricing opportunity that we can utilize. And in that case, I think that we should be adding ASTER into the watch list. And I think there are more important charts that we need to be looking at as more altcoins have been moving upwards. And the first one that has been growing or has been going up is Avantis. Avantis really started to go up. It got listed nearly on the same day as ASTER got listed. It is another DEX, and it starts to go up primarily due to the fact that it's a DEX that works, but also taking market share from HYPE, and HYPE has been falling. And I think that there's a lot of volume going into this, and there's a lot of interest into these type of products, which created the demand that we have in those assets. And then we have some more examples, of which Linea is the first one, which is a layer 1 that has, well, they tried to go live for 2 years and they finally went live, and it's finally taking a lot of momentum, and it's driving upwards in technically the same with Avantis and all those other projects. And the reason for the fact that it's actually showing this interest is because Binance is getting interest. So all the new listings on Binance are also getting interest. And because of that, it's funny because STBL is a stablecoin protocol that has been built by Paolo and has recently been listed on exchanges, has shown the exact same interest, and all of them are actually coins that have the low float, high FTV principle that 2 years ago we saw a lot of those altcoins absolutely getting hammered by the same principle. And that's where you can see the impact of momentum and retail interest and hype impacting an asset with the same dynamics as what we've seen previously. Another one that is waking up is Merlin Chain, also on Binance. It's very much into the Asia markets where they are integrating Bitcoin Fi a little bit more into the Nasdaq as well with the treasury companies. It has shown a massive move upwards, which then shows us that there are a lot of opportunities in the markets that we need to be aware of and that we might be utilizing by trading those actively. And that brings me to a few short-term conclusions, which are ASTER needs to be added to the watch list, and the same for Linea and STBL. Binance season is fully taking place, which means that we can add 2 categories, Binance listed coins and DEXs, which might be interesting for us to trade on. And the altcoin fiesta is going through the roof, which means that the volatility is going to go up, which means that we can trade it even more. And as I said, with the day trading portfolio, it is super active with almost 10% moves on an hour. I can trade that personally, but we can do that on a high time frame as well. And if we know all this information, we need to look at the altcoin portfolio and see whether or not we should be swapping certain assets. Now that we know all the information, we can reflect and see and review the portfolio that we have and start looking at a case of whether or not we should be swapping those assets. And the first thing that we need to do is that we need to look at the portfolio right now. And if we look at the portfolio, we can see that we still have 4 bigger caps. And at this point, we have 6 smaller coins. Some of them are in between. So Optimism, Tau, Celestia, and Sai are the bigger ones. Peak, Rocket Pool, Renzo, Aevo, Wormhole, and Woo are the smaller ones. And with those positions, we can also see that we are having a larger allocation towards Renzo and a larger allocation towards Wormhole, which are even bigger than the allocations that we have in the large caps over here. So that's an important factor to take into account, because if we look at the recent listings of coins, for instance, Linea, STBL, and ASTER, they are not small, but they are having a very high volatility, which means that we can classify them in one of the 2. And I think primarily into the bigger allocations would be possible, knowing that, for instance, TIA and Tau are not really moving along. The same can be said for TIA and Tau, that we can swap those for instance, Linea, or we can swap Tau for NEAR, expecting there to get a higher reward out of it. And then if we look at the smaller coins, we are having Peak in there, which is getting momentum. We are having Rocket Pool there, which is basically doing nothing. And then we have a category of coins that are all Binance listed coins from the previous period where Binance started listing, Renzo, Aevo, and Wormhole. And then we also have Woo, which we think that's going to do well once it comes to the DEXs market. So this is another important factor that we need to look at, is that some of those coins are fully Binance backed, are fully Binance listed, and therefore eager to start moving upwards. So if we look at that, we need to look at Wormhole, which we can see here, which is making a very beautiful technical move, in the sense that we've had the breakout, we have had this move up where it was taking all the liquidity, and now it's doing a retest. And by doing this retest, it's very clear and very likely that in the coming 1 to 2 weeks, if the markets are not crashing, we're going to see a run towards 16 to 18%, knowing that on the weekly time frame, I'll start zooming out a little bit here, knowing that on the weekly time frame, we still have this massive bullish divergence. And the same can be said for Wormhole against Bitcoin. It's doing the exact same with this beautiful retest taking place here, meaning that there is still a lot of upside to come. And when we start zooming out, we can also see that there is still this massive bullish divergence, indicating that we're going to break through the 20-week MA and that there is a potential bottoming procedure taking place at this point. And it also shows that there is actually a lot of upside still to come from this one. And identically, we can do the exact same for Renzo, which is currently trying to fight the 20-week MA as well. And once it breaks through it, then the bullish divergence becomes valid. So these two are actually two anchors that are connected to the ones that I've been discussing previously. And then we also still have Wu, which technically has the same sort of price movement here, that once it breaks through the 20-week MA, I'm sure it's going to bring a lot of upside. So in that sense, we are having multiple coins in our portfolio that are positioned to do well. We have a larger allocation in Wormhole, we have a larger allocation in Renzo, but some coins are questionable. And I think that Rocket Pool isn't doing much. We could twist that around. We could twist now Atao for near. We could twist Tia for any of the coins that are doing great at this point. But you should realize that by having those in a swing trade portfolio, I'd rather wait for a clear 30 to 50% correction on any of those assets to take a position if fundamentally all of them are still eager to have that upside. So at this point, I start to understand the fear that most of you have by not seeing the returns that you would like to see. But I'm sure that with tokens like Wormhole and Renzo, and also the breakouts that are going to come on Optimism and Psy, for instance, I'm sure that there's going to be a tremendous return. And you shouldn't be going into that FOMO period, although everything is moving super fast, and therefore you need to quickly adapt if there is an opportunity in the markets. And I think still at this point with the portfolio, we have a large opportunity going ahead. Ultimately, when we're looking at the current stage of the market, we can see that the interest is there. The volume is picking up, the volatility is going through the roof. It's great for me doing the day trading. It's great for us in the fund and in the venture capital. And through that, we are able to generate a significantly higher return. And that's what we are always seeking. And then when we look at the altcoin portfolio, of which I'm still all into altcoins, I think that some coins are eager to be swapped if they are not going to be moving in the coming few weeks, because we always have an opportunity cost. And if that one is going to be more interesting, we need to swap it. So if you're interested into any of those adjustments of the portfolio, make sure to follow me on Instagram, because that's where I'm going to be providing actual updates on the portfolio. And of course, subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'll see you again on the next one. Ciao.